Um, the other bottleneck is the huge fees charged by the law schools. So the law schools, most of the law schools now, the top law schools, charge anything between 1.5 to 2 lakhs a year. And that's a huge financial burden on most parents whose children are studying at these national law schools. There are bank loans that are available, but even bank loans require collateral. And bank loans also limit the number of career options you have after you graduate, because you'd want to get into a high-paying job. You may not opt for public service, or you may not opt for an NGO simply because you want to pay your bank loan off. So while bank loans are good, there are still serious limitations. And a bank loan will provide only for tuition. It may not provide a stipend for living expenses. And with most of the children coming in, and with most of the law schools situated in cities, Bangalore or Hyderabad or Calcutta, students need to be able to spend some money be able to get some money as stipendary expenses and they also need to mesh well with the mainstream crowd. They can't come in and not do some of the things that the mainstream students from urban areas do. They need to go out at least once in a while. So we factored all that in, and we're going to donors, asking them to institute specific scholarships that would give these children some stipendary money for their expenses, so that they don't feel left out. They're able to integrate well within the general crowd. Of course, it's not money that would help them lead an extravagant life, but it's, they can go out once in a while, they can watch a movie once in a while. And we're also talking to the law schools to waive their tuition fees. And most law schools, at least the top law schools, have policies that say that they will waive their tuition fees if the student cannot afford it. So ideal scholars anyway are scholars that are whose parents are earning below 15 to 20,000 rupees a month, and so they naturally qualify on the means level for all the scholarships that the law schools anyway are offering. And we hope that once they make it to the law schools, they at least will not be charged tuition. As for stipendary expenses, we are hoping that the private funds that we bring in through donors will suffice for that purpose. Now, in terms of the advantages, what does IDEA really deliver, and what are we hoping to achieve in the long run? So very quickly, I think the program delivers on just awareness. Right? At a very simple level, there are schools that are being approached by IDEA volunteers. An IDEA which is running in all the law schools is really running on the back of a very, very passionate, dedicated, and involved student population. I mean, it's really run by students. I played a very small role in conceptualizing it, but the execution, the improvement, the innovation in the processes, and all these have really come about through students, very bright students, very motivated, passionate students, and really it gives us a great sense of optimism that the future of this country is in safe hands. Once you see them working on this with that kind of dedication, that these are people that are serious about bringing about social change. These are very, very idealistic minds that don't just remain idealistic, but will translate that into practice to bring about very concrete social change. So they are out there, these student teams are out there visiting a number of schools, visiting a number of communities, trying to bring the concept of law to them, trying to highlight the benefits of a legal career or legal education, and just creating awareness and sensitization all around. And once these student teams take up this cause, they are also indirectly influencing their own classmates. And because there is a huge bottleneck even in terms of the current students at the law schools and the way they view their own social responsibilities. A lot of them, unfortunately, are purely interested in a career that will pay them good money. They've forgotten down the line, and it's not just their mistake, it's an institutional mistake. They've forgotten down the line that the national law schools were really set up to create a new breed of social engineers, to create agents of social change, what I would like to call social transformers, people who would transform society in whatever way. You can earn money and still transform society. So you don't need to necessarily live a frugal life or a Gandhian life to do that. You can mix and match both, but The bottom line has to be that at some point you're conscious of the fact that you're being given a legal education because you are meant to go out there and transform society. Unfortunately, that message has been lost because of the faulty way in which law school curriculum and the institutional setup has been designed, and also because we don't communicate that message well enough to our students, and also because of market forces. And programs such as IDEA, I think, are useful, somewhat useful in aligning students more towards that social objective, in giving them a glimpse of what it means to socially transform, and in helping them understand the value of that and make that part of their educational experience. So to give you a simple illustration, when the IDEA project was first started at NUJS, one of the students was known to have remarked, expressing his apprehension about the project and bringing in people from the villages to study at the law schools. And this particular person had said, "Ye dehati log ko idhar laake law school ka standard kharab kar denge." Very simply, it translates to, you will bring in these village idiots and spoil the standard of the law school. Because the assumption is that these students from the villages are not good. They're somehow not up to the mark, and we don't want them in our law schools. These are pristine, this is a pristine environment which only we're entitled to, and we don't want these people coming in. Our standard will go down. Of course, this is just lack of awareness. You can't blame the student. We very, very gradually we have to expose them to the fact that these are not village pumpkins. They're not village idiots. These are some of the brightest kids. In fact, India's villages hold some of the greatest minds. C.N.R. Rao, who is the principal scientific advisor to the Prime Minister of India, was known to have famously said that our Einsteins are in our villages. Right? We have to go out there and identify them. And in the legal context, in the context of IDEA, in the context of law and the legal profession and what we are seeking to do through IDEA, I want to take the liberty of rephrasing Professor Rao's statement, which is, our hearts are in our villages. And I don't mean H-E-A-R-T-S. Of course, one could read it that way as well. But I mean H-A-R-T, H-L-A, heart. The renowned philosopher, the renowned legal philosopher, and legal and political philosopher, whose works have shaped the thinking of many lawyers, and is very much a part of the foundational legal courses at most of the law schools. Hart is one of the most famous legal theorists that you would study in jurisprudence. And we say that, a deep thinker like that, we can find some of those in the hinterland of India, in the rural areas of India. We have to just search, we have to look, we have to locate, and we have to make a conscious effort. They will not come by themselves because the barriers are too high. We have to break down the barriers and go and identify them and bring them in. Or to translate it to an Indian context, our Palkiwalas, our Hidayatullahs, our Bakshis are in our villages. And it is our job to go and find them. So it's just a question of creating more awareness, sensitizing children, sensitizing law students to the fact that they are better off if these students come in, because they get a much more diverse student population. They get to see what the real India is like. I mean, they cannot be effective lawyers and instruments of social change unless they know what the real India is. Unfortunately, in law schools which have 90 to 95% of urban elite, you are not seeing the real India. You are seeing a very comfortable crowd that thinks like you, does like you, and acts like you. And we want to change that. Because when you are in a homogeneous crowd, the chances of development, personality development, conceptual development are far more limited than if you were in a diverse environment where you're subjected to diverse viewpoints. You can think through perspectives that you never thought possible earlier, that you never saw earlier. And it enriches your own horizon, it widens your perspective, makes you a much better social being and a much with a better capacity to bring about social change, because you understand the societal structures and much better. And of course, we want the children themselves that we bring in, the IDEA scholars and the communities, to benefit. I mean, they are the primary beneficiaries of this program, because as I mentioned earlier, we want to teach them how to fish. We don't want to just dole out fishes their way each time they're hungry. We want to teach them how to fish. We want to give a powerful instrument in their hands so that they themselves take it and bring about social change. And that's the hope. In fact, I might also refer you to a study done by Oxford very recently that shows that students from not so privileged backgrounds put in much more effort when they come into, in this case a study was done at Oxford, when they come into Oxford, they may have the same grades in school as the others, as the urban elite, but when they come to the college, once you bring them in, they strive much harder because they are much more hungry and they are much more determined to make something of themselves. And that's what we want to prove, that these students, when they come in, will raise the level of quality of education at these institutions, not bring them down, but they will have a fierce determination to really change the dynamics, to raise the ante and to raise the quality of education at these institutions.